to you from Israel and the Galilee on Saturday, Shabbat, 9th of March, 9:47 in the morning. I'm going to jump right into the chat to beat people in and put the postings up, which doesn't take much time at all. Okay. Oh my gosh, I keep hitting the wrong thing. There we go. Please wait till I finish my post before you post. I'm almost done. Okay, I'm done with that. Thank you for waiting. So today is kind of a funny day, partially cloudy, then nice, and it's gonna have like I think a 68-degree high. So I'm leaving the dogs outside because they like, I gotta get rid of this volume, because they like being out there. So I'm just leaving them there. Okay. Let's see. I have a prayer request someplace here, and of course that's important to. Okay. K-A, Kilo Alpha, K-A, Kilo Alpha, K-A, healing. If you want to send prayer requests in, the best is to give me the initials for the person you want the prayer for, so we maintain some sense of privacy. And the unclean spirit people don't know who the heck we're talking about, because Satan doesn't have that kind of power. Okay. Get my sunglasses on with the blue light to soften the glare. I gotta get better stays for. Twist this a little bit. I sat on these once, which was a bad mistake. They're not quite right anymore, but now I got it pretty decent anyway. Not great, but good enough. Oh, I see what I gotta do to bend this out. A little better. Okay. So being a Bible believing site, I'm gonna do praise. There is no God like Jehovah. 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 There is no Messiah like Yeshua. 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 Okay. Let's see. I just want to bring up something that's interesting, but it's relatively unrelated to what we're going to cover today. This is the concept of what's commonly called British Israelism, which is a wacko doctrine that kind of, I think the Black Hebrews might have taken the lead from that. It's sheer 100% unadulterated garbage, okay? There's no biblical basis for it. And the only way people develop British Israelism is by using history books and history recounts that they like. History contradicts and conflicts itself in many, many, many ways, okay? So let's say British Israelism is a completely 100% non-biblically based doctrine. It's garbage, okay? Now, the way it works is the northwestern countries of Europe are really Israel. And the lunacy goes further by saying, like, the Queen of England is descended from King David. Now, this makes me roll on the floor. ROFL, rolls on the floor laughing. The Queen of England, who's now dead, also said, the Queen of England was maybe the king, you know. Okay, so it also says that they're descended from Muhammad. And they also have a stone that they say was from King David's throne that they put under their, swearing in throne when they crown somebody king or queen. Guys, this is the theater of the absurd, okay? But yet it's still running around. So all these people that for many centuries, like what, 5 centuries or something like that, were going to reform churches, churchianity churches, reading the Old and the New Testament, and they're really Israel. I can't tell you how stupid this is. There wouldn't be lost tribes, but they are lost in churchianity. So don't believe this. And people that believe this normally, not all the time, but many follow the Protocols of Zion, which is a moron book that says that the people here in Israel are basically Khazarians, not Israelites. I mean, when these people make these points, they use secular historical references, not the Bible, okay? So anybody that preaches this stuff to you is in Gaga land, all right? Also, they run around talking about, a lot of people talk about who the lost tribes are. I talk about it too. The only ones that I think are very likely to be the lost tribes that I could say with pretty good certainty is the North American Indians. Okay? Now, to say that the Northern Europeans are Israel, see, what they're really saying, although a lot of them don't come out and say it, is that we're the Khazars. So we've been in the land as Khazars, non-Israelites, right? Squatting in Israel's land since 48 and actually before Balfour Declaration 1917. And we're not Israel. Yet after 48, when all the wars came down, we won the wars. We never lost one of those wars, although we were greatly outnumbered. So how does that work? It doesn't. It doesn't work. Okay? It's the theater of the absurd. Okay? Now, a lot of these people are probably of the belief that we're going to get wiped out and they're going to move in. The same like the Black Hebrews talk. We'll get killed and they'll move into Israel and it'll be theirs. Now, guys, this is so stupid. You know, it's stupid, stupid. Are all the people in Israel that say they're Jews, Jews? No. No, they're not. Are all the rabbis who say they're Jews, Jews? I doubt it. I know for sure. I don't want to go into the details, but I know for sure that a lot of them are not. Okay, they say they are. Okay. And you got to also remember the synagogue of Satan mentioned in the Bible is never in Israel. It's always outside of Israel. They say they're Jews and they're not, but it never says that about Israel or Jerusalem or Judah. It's always outside. So, come on, let's, So if anybody is trying to lay this garbage on you, it's nonsense. It's sheer nonsense. And then they don't believe that the word of the Lord is going to go forth out of Israel these days. And, then they don't believe the two witnesses are going to come from amongst the Israelis, which it has to be. You got to be living here in Israel, not living in Germany or Russia or Japan or Ohio or, whatever, right? You got to come from within Israel. They have to be living here. Being a tourist in Israel is nothing. Living here in Israel legally, God will work with that person and refine them, burn the dross out, in my experience, and a lot of them fall away. But coming here as a tourist, God doesn't ever really seem to work with the tourists the way he does with people that he wants living here. And not at all do I see that. Okay? And I've got a lot of years here. I've seen a lot come and go. So if you come across this British Israelism stuff, and they'll tell you what tribe Ireland is from and what tribe France and England and all that. But come on, it's just, it's all based on history, not the Bible. And they try to twist and blend and turn the Bible with the history to make it's just nonsense. Okay, leaving that alone. What I'm going to do today is I'm going to show you what Biden is really up to and what his true motives are, and pertaining to the Middle East predominantly. And we're going to then look at some scriptures, mostly pertaining to the daughter of Babylon, and see how we can put things together. Okay. Now, the Lord's been nudging me about this for a while, and I finally got the fullness of what the problem was today, although I think I was hearing it and I wasn't responding. And this is what it is. And I'm sorry, because I think I didn't really take you off the track in any great extent here. But what I did is I confused the motive. Okay, this is where I went wrong. And please forgive me, B'Shem Yeshua Mashiach. This is God's snare on America, not Biden or Obama's snare. Okay? So let me give you the scripture for God's snare. And you have to understand daughter of Babylon's America, or you're not going to know what I'm talking about. Jeremiah 50:24 explains that there is a snare God put on them. Here we go. I have laid a snare for thee, and thou art also taken, O Babylon, and thou wast not aware. Thou art found and also caught. Now, the word for found is mitzah. Let's check what Strong's does to put it into English. Yeah, it could be found. And also caught, because thou hast striven against Jehovah. Now, this is speaking of America, the daughter of Babylon. I don't have the time to go through that because I've gone through it many, many times. You could stroll through my playlist on my YouTube channel, but go to the live section. That's where the videos are. And you can find Daughter of Babylon, titles, and go through it. Now, Jehovah has put a snare on the daughter of Babylon, which is America. And I was thinking Biden was doing all this knowingly and openly to America to destroy America. And the Lord finally got my attention, being thick-headed like I am, and explained to me that it's his snare, not Biden's, and what Biden's real motives are. And I'll explain that to you, and I think you'll understand it lickety-split. It's not going to be hard. Biden definitely opened up the doors to the border, which is a foolish thing he did, and it's very destructive to America. And it also is going to open up the door to civil war. Again, Biden is not the brightest light in the harbor. He's not the sharpest pencil in the box. On top of him probably never really being that bright to start with, he has problems with memory, finding his way off the stage. There's numerous videos on YouTube depicting this behavior of Biden. So Biden is not firing on all the cylinders as well as other people would be. Okay? So it appears, I gotta watch my words. It appears that he would very much like to see Trump out of the race. He won't meet Trump in a debate at all. He's afraid to. And he won't get a mental cognitive test, just a physical, which he passed, but no mental cognitive, which would measure how good his memory and orientation in the present is and stuff like that. He won't sit for that, which is very, very odd, because I don't think they ever ran a president in probably the last, 60, 70 years that didn't go through this, I guess. I don't know when they started it, but for a long time. It's pretty standard they go through it. All right. Now, most people would not have much trouble scoring well on this test. Old people might. Okay? So, Biden opened up the border and they're flooding in. Now, I don't think Biden understood or planned for a large amount of sleeper agents to be flooding in. And that's why the FBI is coming out with very frequent alerts and warnings about things like taking the grid down, taking out things electrical or with communications and stuff like that. And they're very worried about that. But Biden's not exporting them out of America. Texas moving them from one city moving them out of Texas to other parts of America doesn't exactly trouble Biden, because they're still in America. Now, we have seen various bills get introduced into Congress that would take these people, they come across the border, and when they enter illegally, then they go to the Border Patrol and they file paperwork for asylum. And the Border Patrol people allow this, and they make them legit after they file for asylum. I'm told that they meet various organizations in Mexico that give them a map as to where to go to file and help them with the paperwork. Probably they have the paperwork already filled out when they show up. And they probably just sign it in front of Border Patrol. I'm just guessing, but they may have the actual forms photocopied and they just fill them out in Mexico with the help of somebody, because they probably don't speak English, and then they come into America, they file, and then they become legitimate. They get some sort of number, and they get a court date, which is now running about 7 years in the future. So for 7 years, they can hang around in America and pretty much do what they want. And in many jurisdictions, they're able to get money. They could get housing. They could get like food stamps. They could get medical stickers, what do they call it, Medi-Cal, Medicaid or something, to get medical care. They could go to clinics as well. They could probably get dental. And they get money. They get, in some cases, they get a cash grant of a few $1,000s. So the desire to come to America is great. It reminds me of that old West Side Story song, the original one in the 50s, where one of the lines in the song is everything free in America, because Puerto Rico, they get American passports, and they can just get on a plane or a boat and show up at America like somebody born in Kansas or California. They get a passport swipe and they're in. They could go to work, they could stay there, they could do whatever they want. So a lot of them came up there and got on welfare after World War II in the 50s, and they were getting supported. I've covered welfare before back then. It would, in New York, where most of them came, they were even giving them cars to find work or even just get around, and they would have multiple children, which would up the ante on their benefits, and they would pay their rent in an apartment. They would give them food stamps based on how many kids they had, and they would have medical coverage, and they got pocket money and everything else. So they paid the utilities, the electric and the water and the gas, whatever. So they basically got up in the morning and they had nothing to do. All the bills are paid. And there's food in the refrigerator. And then they would try to send the kids to school, and the schools would give them, if the kids came early, the schools would give them a breakfast for free. They'd get it for free. Then they would eat the school lunch for free, and then they could stay after school and not have to pay for it, and they would get more or less a snack, like milk and cookies or something, for free. Then they'd come home and they would get a meal, allegedly or supposedly. So the amount of food stamps they were given didn't take into account that they were getting a free breakfast and a lunch. So they had food, and this went on, and then more people came up from Puerto Rico, and they had, they didn't have to work. Now, some of them, I came across some in the 60s with a summer job I had once at a hat factory, women's hat factory. Well, it was a distributor or something. I don't know. I think he had manufacturing. I can't remember. It was I needed a summer job. It was a friend of my mother. Her brother had the place, so they gave me a job, and I was working with these Puerto Rican guys, and I really enjoyed these guys. They were so much fun. I had a lot of fun with them. I really enjoyed it, Of course, I'm hanging around with intellectual kids in college, and then I'm with these guys, and they had a real interesting lifestyle. They were young. They'd get off work, they'd go back to their neighborhood, and they would, they were pretty excessive alcohol users, not drug users, and they were very promiscuous, and they partied at night. Instead of sitting home and doing nothing, they'd party, or they'd go out and hang around. They had a good time. They liked it, So they lived pretty good. They bought cars. They had nice cars, and they were really nice to me, and I really liked them. They were, good guys, and they were working. So not all of them were that way, but many were. And then they formed gangs, but the gangs were soft gangs, nothing like what you had today. And the gangs didn't bother civilians. They just was immature games. This is our turf, another gang can't come there. But they weren't ripping off old people or selling drugs in a way. They had drug use somewhat, but and the police, New York police, had gang task force and cops that specialized in this, and they were afraid of the cops, and they really didn't run around with guns, because they got caught with a gun, the police would give them a beating and a half. They'd beat them up bad, and they would go to jail. And police were really frowning on these characters running around with guns, because they could kill a cop. So they used knives. They had these things, they call them a stiletto. It's based on an Italian knife. It's a thin blade, just one edge and a false edge on the top, and it's a thin, long blade. And that's a very good blade design if you're a commando and you want to stalk a sentry and you want to kill him without him screaming. You want to use a long, thin blade to penetrate the organ like a kidney or in the throat or something like that. And a long, thin blade goes in easy. You don't have to, like with a Bowie knife or something where you got to put force in it. So they were using those knives, and most of them were not switchblades where you push the button and it sprung out. Most of them were flip knife. So it had a lock on it, and you learned how to flip it with the wrist and it opened. It wasn't hard to learn that. I had those when I was in New York. And that's what they used, and they fought with baseball bats and chains and car antennas, the old antennas, that kind of thing. So, okay. So, anyway, back to the present. So, Biden, there's definitely a move inside America to block Trump. Several states took him off the ballot, and Trump went to the Supreme Court, and I know one state had to reinstate him. And they're probably the Supreme Court's probably gonna go state by state and have the other states put them back on the ballot, or maybe the decision against the one state applies to the others. I'm not up on it. In any event, it's expected Trump's gonna win on those things and be back on the ballot in those 3 states. Knocking him off several states would make it harder for him to get the Electoral College votes. So Nikki Haley has dropped out. So Trump has basically got a clear path on being the Republican Party nominee for president. So now comes several criminal cases against him. One case, which I think was just civil, got Trump at approximately $500 million in damages he has to pay, $500 million. So Trump's going to appeal that, but to set aside the collection of the judgment, you see, when you get a civil judgment in your favor, you can collect it unless the party that lost files an appeal and posts a bond for the amount of the judgment. So the appeal could take 3 months, 6 months, 18 months, 24 months, you don't know. And during that period, they're afraid that the party involved may, dilute his assets, so you can't collect the assets. Like what? Have a divorce, half the assets go to the wife, or sell something, or merge. There's things that the lawyers can dream up that would work. Embed the company with debt. I mean, there's a lot of things that could happen. So, since Trump has a past that the lenders are not really interested in loaning him large amounts of money anymore, I'm sure he could come up with a lot of people that would give him $30 or $50 million, but $500 million with his, open criminal cases and stuff like that, they're scared. $500 million could wreck their financial statement of the bank badly. They don't like that. So Trump has to go to what would be called like the secondary market or hard money lenders. And they would a group would probably come up with the money. It might consist of 10 or 20 people. They might come up with the money, but they're going to want to collect probably 2 points or 3 points, more like it, over prime. So it's going to be a handsome payment. And there's probably going to be a prepayment penalty. So if he pays it off in 4 or 5 or 6 months, he's going to have to pay a penalty. They're going to want that interest probably for 2 or 3 years. So Trump doesn't want that. So Trump said he could come up with $100 million for a bond. Can you stop the collection of the judgment until then? See, they can get the court to go in and, well, the way it would work is Trump would be forced to submit a summary financial statement of all his assets and what they're worth, in his opinion. Where he has bank accounts, where he owns real estate, where he owns other things. And then the collection, I think it would be the trustee perhaps of the court or somebody would decide what, or maybe a judge, they would make a motion for, after they collected the assets, they would probably file their judgment against any property they want to. Okay? So, you know, he probably has 80 properties or something like that. They could cherry pick the good ones and they could file the claim against those. But they can't file the claim with redundancy against all his properties. So if all his properties are worth $7 billion, they can't file a $500 million claim on everything. So it has to be realistic with the value. So then once they file the lien or the judgment against the property title is blocked. It can't be loaned against, you can't transfer it, you can't do anything with the property without paying the $500 million first. So then they would get the judge to order a sale, a forced sale of the asset. And it would probably be done on an auction basis. So if the property's worth, you know, let's say in a good market where Trump had a lot of time to sell it, like you wouldn't care if it took 18 or 24 months to sell it, you might get, let's say, $2.5 billion. Well, it might liquidate out for, you know, $1 billion, much less than it's worth because it's a distress sale. So what happens is Trump loses big time. So he may go to the court and ask the court to give him a period of time. He'd probably ask for 6 months to sell some property and then pay the bond. And, you know, things like this, I don't know how it's going to end, but it could end where the court says, no, Donald, you come up with the $500 million or your Trump Tower building or whatever building they go after is going to get liquidated at the courtroom steps on auction. And I think it has to sell for more than the $500 million where it won't be a sale. But I mean, the judge can mess with this. There's all kinds of ins and outs, and Trump's lawyers can mess with it. And it can go to the appellate court. It's a general confusing thing. When you're dealing with people that have this much money, like Trump, the amount of legal machinations is huge. Now, the party that has the judgment is in a position to walk into a law firm in New York where they have 600 or 800 lawyers and say, hey, I got this judgment against Trump, help me collect. And they'll say, okay, our fee is going to be, you know, instead of saying, well, we need, you know, it's going to probably cost, you know, $1 to $3 million in legal fees, because they're going to be charging, you know, $1,500 an hour for the partners, you know, $700, $800, $900 for the associates. So they might say, well, we'll do it and we'll take 10% of the what you collect. So if you collect 500 million, we want 50 million and we'll do it on contingency. So you don't have to come up with $2 or $3 million retainer, which you don't have. So then the law firm says, whatever it costs, we're in, and we're going to just ride it hard until it's over. We got a vested interest. We want the money. Chances are most of those people would go for something like that, or maybe they would go for 5% or something like that. It's not a massive amount of work for the law firm to collect the judgment, but it will be some work. It's not going to be like taking a case on and going through a 5-year process to bring it to trial. It's not going to be anything that bad, but it could be pretty extensive. So they're going to want a real honeypot at the end of the rainbow, and they're not going to do it. So Trump's got problems, okay? Now there's a trial that's going to go off, I think, in April, and that gives him time to have a judgment before November. And, there seems to be a concerted effort to stop Trump. If he gets a conviction criminally, he can be pushed off the ballot because now he's a felon. Even though he's not sentenced yet, because sentencing hearings usually come, after the criminal trial. When you're dealing with a prestigious character like Trump, a former president, there's going to be all kinds of appeals, and he's going to be out on bail and all that. So what Trump's going to do, and I think he's already done it, is gone to the Supreme Court and asked them to put a stay order on these cases against him until after the election. The logic being, I can't properly defend myself because I'm running for office. And there's a good chance he would prevail. What the heck happens if, prophetically time allowed, and Trump actually wins in November, and then the criminal case says, okay, you got to go to jail for 3 years before January 20th when he's sworn in? I don't know what the heck happens. I don't think there's ever been a case like that in history of America, so we don't know what in the world would happen. Now, if Trump can stop any of these criminal cases from coming to trial before he's president, when he is president, then he has a lot of power and clout, and the courts are going to be slow, if prophetically time allowed for it, which I doubt. The courts would be slow to say, okay, we're going to have to rip you out of the White House and put you in prison. So that means the country has to stand for a new election. They're not going to let Trump run the country from inside a jail cell. So that would be considered a major catastrophe on the government, and I don't think they would want to do that. So once Trump gets reelected, if time allows for it, which I seriously doubt, he became reelected as president. Even as president-elect, he has a certain amount of elevated clout with the Supreme Court and so forth. He can't fire the Supreme Court judges, but when he becomes president, he could fire, the FBI director, the AG's different, the heads of the other law enforcement agencies are different, and, he appoints different people. And in my opinion, Trump would start a witch hunt against Biden to have Biden put in jail and his son put in jail for various crimes that are already being investigated. And people have already tried to impeach Biden. So what's really going on with Biden is this. Biden thinks that he's going to lose the election. They don't believe that prophetically it's not going to happen. So Biden thinks that if he loses the election, he's going to have a lot of trouble with Trump coming back at him, coming after him. So what does he do? I mean, Trump calls him a crook and corrupt and defiles his name and everything. So how could he imagine Trump would not come after him, right? So the best protection against this is if Trump doesn't win the election. There you have that, okay? So what I believe Biden did is he says, let's open up the borders, let these immigrants come in, we'll give them money and housing and food stamps and medical, and I'll rally them up and we'll find a way to make them eligible to vote before the election, and they'll all vote for me because they want the free handout. Now this is what I believe I was shown is what Biden really was up to. Not saying he's going to destroy America. I can't understand why he would want to be destroying America, yet at the same time try so hard to get reelected. It's an inconsistency. I mean, he's really trying hard, and look what happened to Trump, I mean, there's an effort there. So somebody whispered in his ear, perhaps the guy's name is Obama, that this is how you win the votes. You just bring in a bunch of illegal aliens. Now, there's people now estimating 15 million came in under Biden, and I think the lowest reliable estimates are 7. So if you go 7 and 15 is 22. Divided by 2, you got 11. Let's just run with 11 million or something like that. 70% of military-age males. So you got almost 8 million military-age males running around the country. It would not be hard for them to assemble missiles and rockets inside America, get assault weapons, get pistols, get lots of ammo, and assault military bases with overwhelming force. Military bases in America are normally not very heavily protected. You have MPs and Department of Defense police at the 1 or 2 main traffic gates. They may put a handful there, 6 or 7 or 8 or 4, checking people going in and out. And you have a few other guys patrolling in vehicles around the base, and then you probably have 2 or 3 administrators sitting in an office playing ivory tower. And that's it. So if you're running with 7 million military-age males that are armed and everything like that, I mean, to take over a big military base, what do they need, 2,000 or 3,000? And it says in Jeremiah 50:51, the daughter of Babylon's military is going to be completely destroyed. So I think that's where they're going to start, and of course go for the cities. So that explains why Biden is continuing to want more illegals coming in. If he just wanted sleeper agents, heck, he's there. Now, he's not too smart. So when he cooked up this idea, which may or may not have been done with Obama counseling him, we don't know if it did or didn't, it seemed like a good idea for the Democrats to get votes out of nowhere. Now that administration wants to stay in power again for a million reasons, and they don't want the wrath of Trump coming after them either. So they're very heavily committed. So this craziness they came up with could bring in, maybe he's thinking he could wind up with 25 million people, that many of which will vote for him and not vote for Trump. And he winds up with enough votes to swing the Electoral College. Now, he may not have planned on the enemies of America taking advantage of that and sending up so many military age males, which people are referring to as sleeper agents. So that could be a side effect of this that he didn't plan on. But why didn't he stop it? Because if he stops it, he loses the election. So he pushes it through later and then figures after I get reelected, I'll try to figure something out to clean this nest up. And that's what I believe I've been shown is what's going on with Biden. It's not Biden's snare, it's God's snare. And that's where Biden went astray. And that's why Biden is not shutting the border. And that's why Texas is doing it, but Biden's not doing anything about it because there are reports, quite a few, that the illegals have started moving their penetration of the border to Arizona and California, and they also come into Florida via the coastline, which Florida has coastline all over the place by boat. And there's also reports of them coming in through Canada. It's a mess. Okay? And Biden is probably thinking, let me push this through. Let's keep the border open. Let's get some. There are already bills they've introduced in the Congress that would give these illegals the right to vote very quickly. We're only in March. They got April, May, June, July, August, September, October. They got quite a lot of time to get a bill passed and get these guys positioned to vote. But Biden is probably not that interested in jamming something through Congress right away. He'd rather get the military in first, the illegals in first, so to speak, the asylum seekers, get them in first, and then pop this on America as a very unwelcome surprise. Although they have been introducing bills for it. So that's what it is, and that's the snare, and Biden didn't plan on it turning into military age males. Obama may have done that to Biden, I don't know, one way or the other. Or the nations just may have seen this as a way to take advantage. Okay? So I was previously thinking Biden was just trying to ruin the country, but it doesn't add up. He's not. Now, let me bring out some more points to you. Now, we have a similar type event happening in Israel with Netanyahu facing his 3 criminal cases where he's put Israel into war to keep himself in office because the Israelis are afraid to show division. This is wrong, but they believe it. To the enemies of Israel, Hamas, Hezbollah, Houthis, Iran, Syria, Iraq, various groups. So they don't want to change the prime minister during the election, and Netanyahu knows that. So as the Gaza war winds down, we see the Lebanon war winding up. By the way, speaking of all this stuff, tonight at sundown is the first day of Ramadan. And I expect things are going to start getting hot right away. Now, yeah, I could be wrong, and the first day of Ramadan is tomorrow night, but I don't think so. I think it's tonight. It runs to April 9th. All right, let me check the chat. Now we're going to go into Biden and world affairs, mostly in the Middle East. And let me see if I got to throw the garbage out in the chat. HR requested prayer. I don't know what the prayer request is, but let's pray for Hotel Romeo, HR Hotel Romeo, that God answers the prayer request he wants. Hotel Romeo, HR, God answers the prayer request that he wants. That's an unusual prayer request, but I'm going to remove it off the chat, not block you for your own privacy. Okay. The Russia-Ukraine, I'll try to get into that later. When you get the Santa Claus people, they're not obviously interested in anything to do with the Bible. They're just interested in mocking me, so I just block them. And they eventually dry up. Yeah, you're in the last days, all right. Okay. I got enough of the junk out of there. Now, let me get into my notes and we'll start to discuss some more pressing things about Biden. And then I'll get into Bible prophecy and we'll go there. Biden is definitely afraid. He's not afraid. He doesn't like Israel. Biden worships the powers of the air, the gods of the dead, the unclean spirits, the big S. And he is like them and doesn't want to see in Israel because he doesn't want to see Bible prophecy be fulfilled. So he's opposed to Israel. Now, what he's been doing with Israel is he's sucking Israel in. He's trying to put a snare on Israel. Okay, God's not putting a snare on Israel. God is judging Israel. We're in the year of recompenses, which started on or about August 1, give or take 2 or 3 days, one way or the other. And that means his enemies, and there are enemies of Jehovah that are in Israel, in the government and so forth, and not in the government. And these are enemies of his that will be dealt with during this year. Okay? Plus the nations. So there's all kinds of enemies. Okay? So, mysteriously, Biden didn't want Netanyahu coming to visit him for months and months and months. And then all of a sudden, in sometime in early-ish September, Biden pops up. Yeah, Netanyahu could come here anytime he wants. Yeah. No, September 20th, Netanyahu shows up in to visit Biden. And we don't know what they talked about. Then Netanyahu comes home, and about 2 weeks later, roughly, the October 7th massacre happened. Now, we had normally cameras watching the border, day and night cameras, sensors, trackers to run down people that snuck in. And we had outposts, which were predominantly manned by Israeli female soldiers, because it's not really a combat position. And they got overrun and got killed and raped and taken hostage and all that. And I was sitting here outside on that morning. I won't forget it. I usually get up about 5. The weather was still very warm. I was sitting out there with the dogs, and I was getting ready for my broadcast. And all of a sudden, I think it was about 5:30 in the morning or something, I started getting red alerts on my phone, like a machine gun. Boom, 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 boom. I said, oh my gosh, there's a big rocket barrage. What the heck is going on? Normally, 15, 20 minutes, the Israeli Air Force is over there bombing them. Maybe 30 minutes, But that's really be a long time for constant rocket fire. So I'm watching this come in, and I don't think the Air Force responded for 3.5 or 4 hours. I was sitting out there watching it the whole time. And that's way too long. That's not normal. Something was wrong. Why nobody listened to the cameras or paid attention to the cameras, paid attention to the outposts? They were calling the military headquarters and saying we're getting deluged, and they were saying, nah, you're imagining it. Nah, that's not right. Something's wrong, okay? And then to take so long to respond, and we took so many missiles and rockets, and they were running around, Netanyahu's insane gun control laws. People couldn't defend themselves. They were getting burned in their houses, killed in their houses, all the atrocities, right? Thousands of these people came in, and they took a massive amount of hostages back to Gaza with them. They were getting paid $10,000 a hostage. They were taking dead bodies back with them, because with a dead body, the people wouldn't know if the person was dead or was just taken hostage. It's pretty cruel. And they're still holding the hostages 5 months later and don't want to give them up, and the conditions are deplorable. Yet they want humanitarian aid. So people that were in Gaza were calling for help. There were policemen there and security people, and they were calling for help, and they didn't get help for 7 or 8 hours. Usually they'd have help in, 10, 15 minutes. Helicopters, vehicles. So something was rotten in Denmark. Let's put it that way. No offense, Denmark. There was a rat in the woodpile here. Okay? No doubt. September 20th, he's with Biden. This happens October 7th. What did this do? It infuriated Israel. So it got Netanyahu his war. So it would belay or stall his criminal prosecutions, which are 3. They're for corruption, and it would total, if he got maximum sentencing, which is normally not the case, it would be 16 years in jail. He'd probably get 2 to 4 years in jail, but he'd be finished in politics. There'd probably be all kinds of fines. He'd lose his house in Caesarea, blah, 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 blah. And he's an older guy. Guy is a term loosely used. He's the Netanyahu has some years, is 73 or something. And they could give him 16 years, which means he never gets out of jail. To him, prophetically, time won't go that far, but he doesn't know that. So he got his war. And then Biden comes along and says, gee, let's see if we can infuriate the Muslim neighbors of Israel to wipe Israel out. So he starts giving Israel all kinds of bombs and weapons, right? But he's not just giving it to Israel, he's managing the war, or trying to. So Netanyahu is a liar and breaks his word all the time. That's what he's known for in Israel. So he goes to Biden and makes promises to Biden that he can't keep. He writes checks he can't cash. So he tells Biden what Biden wants to hear. Biden says, hey, we're looking good here. And he comes back to Israel and he realizes if he goes through with those things, Israel's going to throw him out of office on a vote of no confidence, and then his criminal cases are going to drop on him fast. And he's going to be in the jail. So we've had at one point a few years ago, we had one prime minister and one former prime minister and one former president of Israel in the jail at the same time. Mayors go to jail. The corruption runs deep here and widespread in Israel, and they go to jail. So Netanyahu knows that. He don't want to go to jail. Why would he want to go to jail? So he never went to the court and said, look, I'll plead guilty, give me a suspended sentence, I'll be out of politics forever, leave me the heck alone. And they probably would have done it years ago. But nope, he wouldn't do it. He's going to outsmart them. So he tried to do judicial reform, which would have led to a law stating that the prime minister has immunity. Anything he does in office, he cannot be prosecuted civilly or criminally for. That's referred to as the French law, which is slang because France has such a law. So that's what Netanyahu was trying to do, and he didn't even come close. And he had some preliminary laws passed that would elevate him to be able to do this French law, and the Supreme Court of Israel overturned those. So he's stuck. So he's also mad and angry. So he flips Israel into a war. And Biden helps him. And Biden was probably saying, well, let's do this because we'll get the Arab states enraged at Israel and they'll attack Israel, and I'll just turn my back on Israel and they'll run out of bullets and bombs and missiles and it's over. So he sucked Israel in, and now because Netanyahu is not playing fair with Biden, he's twisting and turning to protect himself. Biden's pulling his hair out. So Biden had Benny Gantz, the contender to take Netanyahu over, come visit him the other day against Netanyahu's wishes. Gantz doesn't have much status in Israel. He's a member of the Knesset is all, and a leader of a political party. And it was incorrect for Biden to bring him over without Netanyahu's consent or anything like that. Now I got to try to get up and take a fast break with this slippery floor. Let me see. Push out. I'll be right back. So I'm going to keep finishing the story, and I'm going to tell you where this is headed with Bible prophecy. the light on. So Biden does not want to see Israel in any way, shape, or form win this war. I'm going to pour myself a cup of pomegranate juice. In no way, shape, or form does he want to see Israel win this war. But Netanyahu has to win the war, or Netanyahu can get bounced out of office quickly, and they could vote a new coalition in the same day, which would be Benny Gantz, which, believe me, is no great things for us. Benny Gantz is cut out of the same demonic cloth as Netanyahu. It would be different than Netanyahu, but I don't think it would be much better. Different is not better. So, I'm going to adjust this here. Different, but not better. Benny Gantz is not any. He's a liberal. He's a nincompoop. He's not any good at anything. And I don't even think he wants to do it. So, looking at my notes. Now, Biden is fighting for a ceasefire in Gaza like you wouldn't believe. His CIA director is working on it now before Ramadan starts tonight. He's scared. He's scared. He doesn't want this. We're in the year of recompenses. Let me tell you, Gaza's destroyed. The streets are gone, the traffic lights are gone, the sewage is gone, the water lines are gone, the electric is out, and there's intermittent outages with the cell phones and the internet. They go off and on constantly. Okay, and there's food shortages. 85% of the houses are destroyed or damaged. The houses that were looted by the other people. They can't get humanitarian aid into Gaza correctly because Hamas steals it and then sells it back to the people of Gaza at exorbitant prices, which they can't afford. So they tried parachute dropping the aid in on the beach. Several of these packages wound up in the water. So they had to swim out and get it and, bring it back waterlogged. Whatever they could salvage. When they were doing it with trucks, the Hamas would keep the people from the trucks. The food would go to the UNWRA, which is run by Hamas, according to most reports, and it wouldn't reach the people unless they bought it in the stores for big money, which they can't afford because they're not working. The stores are destroyed, the malls are destroyed, the government buildings are destroyed, mosques are destroyed, did I say schools, universities, they're destroyed. The people of Gaza are living in tents. They're cold, they're wet. They're not doing good. Year of recompenses. What I've covered on my Telegram channel, and millions of people have it on YouTube, not millions, but many. When these attacks came into Israel, not just October 7th, but previously for years, when a terrorist would kill an Israeli or rockets or missiles would, they went out on the streets with sweet candy or sweet cakes, giving it away for free to celebrate the death of the Israeli, like how sweet it is. Estimates that I respect are up at 95, 98% of the people that live in Gaza are against Israel and don't want to see Israel here and don't care, obliterate the Jews in Israel and get rid of them. It's probably almost all of them. Year of recompenses. Life is pretty miserable for them. And Hamas is not doing that well either. Perhaps 10,000 have been killed. And them and PIJ together were maybe 50,000, maybe 30,000. We don't know exactly. Their tunnels are massively destroyed. Many of their hospitals, which were fronts for their underground bunkers and tunnel network, they would build the underground bunkers under the 36 hospitals in Gaza that the nations paid for. Now, 36 hospitals in a community with 2.5 million is a little bit nuts, okay? That's more like a community of 8 or 9 million would have 36 hospitals, okay? So many of those are destroyed, and they would use the hospitals' electric, sewage, water, and so forth to run their underground networks in the tunnels. And plus, you couldn't bomb these underground bunkers because they were right under the hospital. You'd have to get rid of the hospital. And they were using the hospitals as ammo and weapon depots to house Hamas soldiers and so forth. It was a front, and the nations were supporting it. Aside from giving them a few $1 billion for them to build a 300-mile tunnel network, the nations want to get rid of us. They're all serving the gods of the dead. So, the leaders are. So what do? They're still hanging on. Okay? Did Israel get a victory yet? No. And this is important. You have to understand this. God is not going to let Israel have any kind of a meaningful victory like getting the land back and getting rid of them in Gaza unless it comes in a way that everybody knows it was Jehovah that did it. Think the two witnesses. Okay? The IDF and the military and the aircraft and the Navy, God is never going to let them have their victory with that because they're never going to turn to Jehovah. And that's what this is all about. They're not going to turn to Jehovah. They're going to keep relying on themselves and their F-35s and F-16s and missiles and all this stuff. And that's not what Jehovah wants. So they're not going to get their victory over Gaza without Jehovah delivering it to them on a silver platter, which would be the two witnesses. Zechariah 12. Okay? Now, so what happened? Did Hamas get punished because it's a year of recompenses? Hamas got punished and Gaza got punished because Father God Jehovah knows what's in the hearts and minds of these people down there. Did they go into captivity? To a great extent they did. Did they go to another country? No. So they weren't in real classical captivity. But they got run out of their houses. And they're living in tents. And now Hamas is hoping for some miraculous deliverance because it's Ramadan, that many nations of their persuasion, with Islam are going to rise up and come to their defense, which I don't think is going to happen. Are we going to see a spike in terrorist attacks around the world? I do. Be careful. Are we going to see a rising up of the other nations against Israel as per Zechariah 12:10? We might. I don't know. It will happen. I don't know if it's going to happen because of Ramadan, but it might. The Israeli Defense Forces dropped leaflets on Gaza yesterday, I think, wishing them a happy Ramadan and telling them to take care of the needy. Telling them to take care of the needy is a waste of breath. And these packets are incorrect. What does the Ten Commandments say? Thou shalt have no other gods before me. Gaza is the land of Israel. It used to belong to us. We gave it back. Stupid us. Netanyahu was in on that one. So we gave it back. So anyway, they're in Israel. And they're worshiping another god. Okay? And we're encouraging them by wishing them a happy Ramadan. You see how the government puts sins on Israel? You see it? You think they don't know what they're doing? They do. Satan knows what he's doing. So what war are we at? Let's keep going. So Hamas is punished. Gaza is punished. Not to the fullness yet, but they're plenty punished. And Israel is still being punished. The hostages aren't released. Netanyahu has all kinds of political problems as a result. And occasionally rockets come in. Now, we need to attack the Rafah crossing to dismantle Hamas. Is that going to happen? Probably. Is that going to get us the victory and the land returned to us? No. That by itself, no. The people that live in Gaza, over 2 million, maybe 2.5 million, counting Hamas and all that, have nowhere to go. Egypt does not want them. Jordan doesn't want them. Saudi Arabia doesn't want them. Yemen's not saying, come live here. Iraq's not saying that. Syria's not saying that. Iran's not saying that. Lebanon's not saying that. Nobody wants it. They will pay. And that will be Israeli land again with Israeli shepherds and stuff like that. And there will be nice houses on the beach by the water. And I tell you, that's a delightful place to live. It's in South Israel. It's nice and warm. You're on the Mediterranean. So it's not going to be steeping hot at all. And because when you're right by the beach, it doesn't get that hot. Okay? And you're going to have, of course, the water does. It never gets as hot. An ocean never gets as hot as land because oceans have waves. I'm not talking about lakes. I'm talking about an ocean. And it would apply to a river, I suppose, but with an ocean. So the water doesn't get bakey and hot from the sun and steam like the Sea of Galilee, which is basically a lake, does. So it's cooler there. That's why Tel Aviv is never that hot. I guess 10, 15 degrees cooler than it would be inland. So, you know, you get up in the morning, sit on your patio or in your yard out there, have your eggs and coffee and go take the dog and have a nice walk on the Mediterranean. What's not to like? Okay, so Israel's not going to get, will they attack? Probably. Will they rout out Hamas and Rafah? Yes. Yes. God, I don't think, wants to see Hamas keep raining terror and death and destruction down on Israel. So yeah, they're going to root them out over there. They're going to break the back of Hamas, and then what? Hamas is still going to be there. What are you going to do with them? Have mass executions and kill 1,000 or 2,000 every day like Hitler or Stalin might do? No. So they're still there, and they're going to have all the nations screaming, rebuild it, rebuild it. I tell you the truth. To get it rebuilt somewhere reasonably acceptable would be 2 or 3 years, 5 years to really rebuild it. I'm telling you, the place is it's just a garbage dump. There's very little left over there, okay? And the nations are probably more than happy to pay for it, but they're going to have to fix the sewage, fix the water, fix the electric. Israel's not giving them electric for free anymore. That's over with. Israel never rebuild the lines. And then Israel stopped them coming in and working in Israel. They don't want that anymore. We're importing workers from India by the tens of thousands to take up the slack from that. and letting them live here. I like the people from India. I don't have a problem with the people from India. I like them. I have friends from India that talk to me on WhatsApp. It's fine with me. Now, these people that I talk to, the friends, they're not Muslims from India. They're Hindu. And Hindu people really like Israel, by the way. And they're churchianity people from India, and they like Israel. So what's the problem? I don't believe the Israeli government is idiotic enough to bring Muslims in from India in these trying times. They're screening the people. So they're bringing in workers. And what will the Indian people be like? Oh, they'll be hard workers. That's what they'll be like. What do you think? They'll be nice people. You think they're going to go around and stab people in Israel and attack them? Come on, not a chance. There's no problem with that. All right, so, yeah, they're going to hit Rafah, and that's going to infuriate the surrounding Muslim states even more because they're going to see the back of Hamas broken completely when that happens. When Rafah is hit, they're completely broken. I don't know why we're not flooding the tunnels, because that seemed to be a solution, but then they stopped. And they don't tell us why. So they might have a good reason, or they might have a political reason. I don't know what the reason is. I don't know. Nobody's telling us. So you got to be careful. You don't want to go just jump the gun. It could be political. It could be ecological. It could be, who knows why they're not doing it. I don't know. But they are destroying lots and lots of tunnels. And they're going to make sure that no military equipment comes in from Egypt anymore. So I don't think the way this existing government works, and America, the way that worked, that they're going to say, well, we got to move the people out of Hamas. Biden is insistent you will not evict the people out of Hamas. He's insistent you will not use any Gaza territory to create a buffer zone. Netanyahu is dead bent on using a kilometer-deep area of Gaza, the whole eastern Gaza, to make a buffer zone in Gaza, not in Israel. Okay? Biden's opposed to that. Biden's opposed to attacking Rafah. He said, maybe we'll stop Israel from using any American war equipment if they attack Rafah, which means we couldn't use any airplanes and other things, bombs and whatnot. But he retracted from that. Now, Biden doesn't talk much about Lebanon, but he had, I think, Hochstein, the ambassador to Israel, go to Lebanon and try to get some sort of a peace talk, and the Hezbollah wouldn't even read his proposal. So he gave up and went back to America. He left an understudy or one of his assistants there to make it look good. But he just went back to America, probably to tell Biden these people are hopeless. Hamas is hopeless. Qatar is housing the Hamas leaders. These are typically billionaires that are sitting there running the war from Qatar in a 5-star hotel, eating in the best restaurants and stuff like that, and, getting massages and all this while they run the war. He told them if they can't come up with some sort of ceasefire agreement with Israel, he's considering telling them to leave Qatar, which the most logical place for them to go would be Iran, which they might do. But Qatar also may just be talking. A lot of these guys bluff. And they say things and they don't really go through with it. I don't think Qatar's going to burn that bridge, but I don't know. He might. If Qatar throws him out, Qatar made themselves an enemy of Iran. Qatar has no military might that could hold up against Iran. Neither does Kuwait, neither does Bahrain, neither does the UAE, neither does Oman, neither does Saudi Arabia, neither does Iraq. And that's going to come up later with prophecy. So, now we go to Lebanon. So Lebanon's saying they're not going to stop the attack. until we, permanently stop attacking Gaza. The implication is if we temporarily were to stop attacking Gaza for 6 weeks, they would stop for the 6 weeks. If we resumed, they would. So they would rebuild. They would move back into the area near the Israel border between the Litani River and Israel, the 17, 18-mile wide zone they're not supposed to be in, according to the UN, that they are in. They would go back and rebuild and bring more weapons in and so forth. So Israel's not going to get any kind of a plus from that. Plus, with a 6-week ceasefire, Gaza would rebuild and start launching missiles at us again, probably way before the 6 weeks was up. So we're not doing nothing, basically, until Rafah is destroyed in Gaza. Now, if they say, okay, here's all the hostages we have left, we'll give them back to you as soon as you implement the temporary ceasefire, Netanyahu would do that for political reasons and for the emotions of the people whose friends and family are hostages and for the hostages. So I'm sure Netanyahu will go for that, and I'm sure most of the people in Israel, politicos and regular people, would just shut up and go for it, knowing that they're going to rebuild. But we would also rebuild. And it would not be a permanent ceasefire. We would not withdraw from Gaza. We would stay there on ceasefire terms and see what happens. Now, Biden says to the Hamas people that if he's saying if we can get Israel to stop the fighting for 6 weeks, we should be able to permanently get it to stop. Now, I don't believe Jehovah's going to let Hamas get away with that. This is the year of recompenses, nor Gaza get away with it. They did it. And what they did was so atrocious. This is not over. Okay, they're going to be cut off from Gaza when it's over. But that's not going to come from the IDF and the government of Israel. It's going to come from Jehovah, 2 witnesses. Everybody's going to know it's Jehovah. So with Lebanon, since we don't see a ceasefire happening, although it could happen this afternoon, but I doubt it, what they want, what Hamas wants, is they want us to do a permanent ceasefire. They want to dole the hostages out. They don't want to tell us how many hostages there are. So they might only have 10 or 12 or 3 or 4 left living hostages. We don't know. The hostages are being kept in apartments by civilians in Gaza. They're probably getting paid to keep them. And they're using them as servants and probably raping the women steadily. Probably. So they're all guilty. Many civilians joined the Hamas attack on Israel on October 7th. They're all in on it. That's the general consensus in Israel, and I think it's a correct one. They all hate us. So they're all paying. Now, they parachuted some humanitarian aid in yesterday, America did, and the parachutes didn't open. And the food came down and hit people in the head and killed 5 people and 4 were injured. So I would say that's humanitarian aid genocide. But most people wouldn't like that. That's not politically correct talk. So now Biden is saying we'll build a temporary pier in Gaza. And we'll bring the humanitarian aid in there on boats. And then we'll offload it onto the pier. But we won't put any American troops on the ground in Gaza. We'll keep them on the ships. So let me open this up to you, and you can see you'll start to understand that Biden is a pretty stupid person, okay? He really wants to help. I think he really wants to help Gaza with the humanitarian aid to keep them alive and going so they could kill Israel again another day. So I think he's really trying. The trucks aren't working. So Okay, he brings ships and they come to the pier. They dock up at the pier. Who's going to stop Hamas from boarding the ships and taking the cargo over? I don't know. Israel? Probably. I don't know. Maybe nobody. So let's assume miraculously the cargo of humanitarian aid gets offloaded from the ship onto the pier. Okay? Now, how do you distribute the humanitarian aid? The pier is in one place in Gaza. It could be up in the north. It could be anywhere. So you could tell the people to go to the pier. Well, Hamas can block them from going to the pier. Or you offload it and put it on trucks and distribute it. Well, golly gee, now we're right back to the trucks again, which get hijacked by Hamas. They take the loads to UNWRA and they resell them. Or you're going to have the trucks moving around in Israel, and it'll be the same Hamas looting it and the people stealing it before other people can get it, and all of this stuff. It's the same problem. Unless you find a way for the people to go to the pier and distribute the food. Which you can't, because they can't travel to the pier. You can't let Hamas get near the pier. So you see how stupid Biden is? The parachuting of many nations didn't work, with France, Jordan, America. It was falling in the water. In this case, the parachutes didn't open and people got killed. So they could smack together a temporary pier probably in a week, 10 days. The Seabees could do it. I don't think it'd be very challenging. And then ships could pull up and offload, and then they're going to have to use trucks to distribute it amongst Gaza. How are they going to get it? They can't email it as a file attachment. What are you going to take, humanitarian aid package and attach it in the internet? You can't. They're not going to use carrier pigeons. What are they going to do? They're going to put it on trucks, and the same thing will happen with Hamas stealing the humanitarian aid. And that shows you what an idiot Biden is. Now, I have to ask myself, does Biden really not want the humanitarian aid to get in? Maybe. Why? Because that will keep the cries of genocide high against Israel and keep the nations of the world rising up against Israel, as well as the Shiite Muslim terrorist states near Israel. So maybe he is trying to keep the humanitarian aid out for that reason, but I don't know. I think he's a dumb guy and he's trying to get it in and he doesn't know what to do. He doesn't want to tell Israeli soldiers, to go with the trucks of humanitarian aid and protect them with guns, because that would go to get into a guns a blazing with Hamas, and Biden would look like he's promoting Hamas getting killed, which is what would happen. And they may start shooting rockets at the food. So, he's against Israel. Understand that. He wants Hamas there to play again another day and kill us. He doesn't want the people in Gaza leaving Gaza. He doesn't want Israel moving into Gaza with settlers. He wants a two-state solution, which is doom and gloom on us, because they'll just take the West Bank and set up another Gaza and attack us from it, much worse than Gaza. So that's just an idiot talking. Okay? I want a two-state solution. He's a complete idiot. Hamas doesn't want a two-state solution. They want a one-state solution. No Israel, Palestine. The only one who really wants a two-state solution in this thing is Biden and some other nations. It's not going to work. So what's going to happen in Lebanon? the thing that allegedly leaked was March 15th. The IDF will be ready to attack um, Lebanon. Now, why the 15th? Because by the 15th, the rain will be over. We apparently had some kind of rain last night or early this morning again, keeping our roof wet, I guess. I didn't see signs of it in terms of my chair outside getting wet. So I don't think it was much of a rain, but something maybe, or it never happened where we live. I don't know. But anyway, it will be in dry weather, and the tanks and the armored personnel carrier and the mobile artillery and everything else and the ground soldiers function better in dry than they do in wet. And we'll have to roll in. Do I think we're going to get the land of Lebanon back that belongs to us based on the IDF? No. No. I don't see that happening. I don't see it. What it could be that Lebanon doesn't have all these missiles that they say they do in the media. The Israeli government never told us that they have all these horrible missiles and could wipe us out. The thing they did tell us recently was Golan said, I could attack Lebanon and turn him into the middle, make it like the Middle Ages in a day, or he said actually a few hours. And I believe that he wouldn't crack off like that unless he meant it. So I think they're liars, just like Iran and Hamas and the rest of them. And they're just lipping off that they got all these horrific missiles to try to scare us, and they really don't. I don't think they have them. And I think that's going to come out. And I've covered in the past what will happen with missile launchers and stuff. I don't think they can do that much damage to us. And I think the damage that they're going to take is going to be something like what happened in Gaza to Lebanon. But I don't think we're going to get the land of Lebanon back by the efforts of the IDF or the government of Israel. It's only going to come in a way that everybody knows Jehovah did it, and the two witnesses would meet that test. Regular people don't go to school and learn how to make fire come out of their mouth and call down all the varying plagues on the enemies. That doesn't happen. So Biden is very frustrated right now because in his mind, Israel is going to win the war. Now, the militias backed by Iran in Syria and Iraq keep attacking the American forces in Iran. That hasn't stopped. It keeps going on and on and on, and Biden's response is minimal. Now let's go to the Houthis in Yemen. They're still not doing anything meaningful to the Houthis. There's not anything they can do that's not meaningful unless they carpet bomb Yemen, and they might get to that point. Where I'm talking, they drop 400 or 500 bombs at various different sites, or maybe 800 or 900 would be better. And they're going to create a lot of problems for Yemen and the Houthis, but the Houthis are underground, and they're still going to run. And there's that Iranian surveillance vessel in the Red Sea that is isolating targets for the Houthis, and probably, if they have any kind of guided missiles, controlling the path of the missile and stuff like that. So, Lebanon is going to be more or less like Hamas. We're going to go in there, we're going to devastate them badly. they're going to attack us with a lot of missiles. Infiltrations, I don't think will work. And we're not going to be able to conquer the land, and the nations are going to come more and more against us. And now the Houthis, we're not attacking them. But the other side of the coin with this year of recompenses is you have to understand the Houthis haven't directly done very much to Israel. They got in the beginning one rocket into Eilat that didn't kill anybody or anything like that, and most of the other rockets are being shot down. And they're interdicting ships. Some are Israeli or Israeli bound or whatever. Some are not, and they say they are, and they don't know. And they're attacking ships. And this is to increase the pressure politically in the world against Israel. So I don't know what's going to happen to them, but since they haven't done that much to Israel to date, maybe not much will happen to them. Just the US and the UK keep bombing them, and they may eventually wake up to a ground invasion. Now, Biden is now coming off his, or he soon will be, his position of, well, we can't, he's going to realize we can't stop Israel from having some kind of victory with Hamas. And then the Lebanon war is going to come about. Now, what's Biden going to do? Is Biden going to cut the head off the snake and attack Iran? I think so. I think so. If Biden leaves Iran alone, this is what's going to happen. The Red Sea problem is going to get worse. The internet cables are going to get cut more and more. Iran's going to start attacking ships in the Persian Gulf and the Sea of Oman outside the Persian Gulf with regularity. And if they get away with that and they start really spiking oil prices, Europe and America and South America and Central America and Asia and many other people will suffer tremendously. Okay? And Iran will eventually put Iraq in their pocket, and they already have Syria and Lebanon and Gaza and Yemen. And they could likely attack Kuwait, Bahrain, Qatar, UAE, Sea of Oman, Saudi Arabia, Jordan, and dominate the oil in the Middle East. Now, this would take Iran some time, and they would do it with their satellites. The Iraqi militias in Iraq and Syria, the Houthis, the Hezbollah, the Hamas, they would keep, the ship interdictions to an incredibly bad level. They would eventually attack these other countries, dominate the oil, and they may even try to close the Straits of Gibraltar and stop the flow of ships into and out of the Mediterranean into the Atlantic Ocean. They could do it. Morocco is the closest place, and they've already put IRGC troops in Morocco weeks ago. So Algeria would help them, and they could get that done if they want to. And get the whole world's economy shut down, and that would be interesting because it would raise the pressure on Israel. So right now, Biden looks like a loser, and he's got to kind of clean himself up for the election. So he may try to do something meaningful to Iraq and Syria, damaging them militaristically, so they can't come back again. So now what we're going to do is look at Bible prophecy as to what America is going to do. And the Lord had me go through this morning in Jeremiah 50:51 and look at analogies with Babylon, this Nebuchadnezzar, the Assyrians, as what was done to the Assyrians, how Babylon got destroyed, how Assyria got destroyed, who did it. And it's pretty eye-opening. And I'm going to take a fast break and we're going to go through that. Okay, so when we look at this in the new light of Biden not really being an ally of Iran, just trying to keep himself in power, it changes things. It's getting chilly. It changes things. Okay? Now, if Trump got elected, as a preceding, if he said, well, I'll go bomb Iran, people would run out and vote at the polls for Trump, wouldn't they? He's going to kill Iran. Yeah, they would think it's a great idea. Okay? So that Biden is going to start to have to shift his positions, and I think Biden is going to turn against Iran because he's getting badmouthed by the Donald. I'm checking the chat here to get rid of the garbage. I haven't been talking about Ukraine. Leave the channel, it's okay. I'm not going to interrupt my planned lesson because you just jump in here and say, talk about Iran when I'm talking about something else. Ukraine, why should I do that? Okay, you don't control what I talk about. All right. Now, the attacks on the bases in Iraq and Syria that America has are obviously from Iran-backed militias, and Biden's not dealing with them correctly. And he's not dealing with the Houthis correctly. It's not working. The militias in Iraq and Syria keep attacking American bases. Iran keeps threatening it's going to get worse. And the Houthis keep attacking, and they're escalating. People in America probably aren't very concerned about Israel being attacked by Hamas and Hezbollah and the Houthis, but the shipping bothers them. And the American bases getting hit bothers them. So, to the Bible. There's the daughter of Babylon and Babylon. Babylon happened in the past. Nineveh, near what we call Iraq today. How did Babylon get knocked out? I'll tell you. This guy named Cyrus came along from Persia, think Iran. Persia, think Iran. Cyrus. Okay? Remember when Trump was in office, they were referring to him as some sort of Cyrus or something, which was ridiculous. So, one time Trump said he could run for prime minister in Israel and win. And he wasn't kidding, he could. People aren't so bright, but they would, I think it would have been a disaster, but they would do it. So the Babylonians captured, they attacked Israel, they burned the temple. God had them take Israelites captivity for 70 years. The 70 years were up, and the leader of Babylon, Nebuchadnezzar, I believe was his name, didn't want to let the Israelites go, wanted to keep them there. So what did God do? He raised up Cyrus from the Persian Empire to attack Babylon. Cyrus comes down there with his armies. They get outside the walls of Babylon and they go to try to attack. And the Babylonians are cracking up laughing at them. They're half-heartedly attacking them outside the walls, and then these guys are a waste of our time. Let's just go back behind walls and forget about them. They'll go away. The Babylonians had walls that were very high. They might have been 50, 60, 70, 80 feet. I don't know. They were so wide, they would travel around the walls around the city on chariots on the top of the wall. It was thick walls. Be rough to knock a wall like that down. It probably was at least 4 or 5 feet thick. So they had massive food supplies inside Babylon. They didn't have to worry about running out of food for probably a couple of years or more. So they were prepping. And Cyrus came after the first encounter. He said, oh man, this is no good. So the Lord showed Cyrus what to do. And the water that Babylon needed, which, what are you going to go without water 3 days, 4 days, 2 days, not long, was a river that came under the wall of Babylon. into the city. So what Cyrus did, he took all his armies and he had them immediately dig 28 tributaries to the river. He just kept, digging tributaries far enough away from the walls of Babylon they didn't see what he was doing. And they were pretty relaxed about this whole thing. They were pretty secure that you can't knock the walls down. And they probably were right. You couldn't easily do it. And while you try to knock the walls down, they're going to go pour hot oil on you, shoot arrows at you, throw spears at you, maybe open the gates and run out and stab you with swords and all that, right? Cyrus had the 28 tributaries dug. And guess what? The water stopped going into Babylon, and they were able to walk on the mud. It wasn't an ocean. It wasn't 3,000 or so feet deep or something. I don't know how deep it was, but the soldiers just got in the riverbed, and en masse they walked into Babylon at nighttime. They didn't kill anybody. And when the people woke up in Babylon and started having their servants serving them breakfast on their balconies and their verandas and patios, they realized they were occupied by Babylonian soldiers. Now, if there was a big battle, what would have happened is the Israelites living there would have been hit by arrows, fire arrows, spears, catapults firing big balls of wheat with tar on it to cause fires. They would have got burned in fires. They would have got killed. They could have been starved out. God told them they would have it well in Babylon. He didn't want to see this happen to them. He wanted them to come back to Israel. So Jehovah created a way, sort of a snare on Babylon. Jehovah knew all along that river could be diverted and that soldiers could walk under the wall. They knew that. Jehovah knew that. They didn't, but they thought they were so smart. So nobody got killed. The Israelites didn't get killed. And Cyrus sent them to Israel, gave them money, gave them letters of safe passage, gave them soldiers to protect them. And they went back and they started building the temple with Zerubbabel. So Israel got delivered, then they got a temple, and they were in Israel. But it was troublous times. Just like in Daniel 9, let me read it to you, 26, troublous times, right? Or it's 27 maybe. Let's read it. Daniel 9, 26 maybe. No, it's 25, I think. Daniel 9:25. Know therefore and understand that from the going forth of the commandment to restore and build Jerusalem unto the anointed prince, which is not Yeshua, it's the prince from the line of David in the next temple, shall be 7 weeks and 80. They have all the timing messed up in 2 weeks. The street shall be built again, and the wall, even in troublous times. This is very much like what Zerubbabel went through. 14 years, he had to stop building the temple because he was under attack so much. So then the Lord told him, don't worry, you're going to go back and finish the temple in Zechariah 4, and he did. Okay? So, it's an interesting thing. Now, let me get back to Jeremiah 50 and 51. Let me get into my notes, because we got to go deeper into this. Now, we're going to go back in time before the destruction of Babylon. And this is what we're going to talk about as Syria. Of course, we'll read in Jeremiah 50:51, he's going to destroy them like he did Assyria. Now, how did Assyria get destroyed? I'll read you a quote. Determined to end Assyrian dominance in Mesopotamia, Babylon led an alliance in an attack against Assyria, the Assyria capital, Nineveh. The city was completely sacked after a 3-month siege, and Assyrian king Shin-Sharashukin was killed. That was the Persian Empire, I believe. Assyria is like the Persian Empire. Now, let's take a look at what countries are the Assyrian Empire today. Get ready for this one. This is big. Assyria was located in the northern part of Mesopotamia, which means not much to us, which corresponds to most parts of modern-day Iraq, Iran, Kuwait, Syria, and Turkey. Let me give it to you again. The Assyrian Empire consisted of Iran, Iraq, Kuwait, Syria, and Turkey. Now let's go through this. Iraq. The Iraqi militias are attacking American bases, and Iraq is telling America to get all their military stuff out of Iraq, and America doesn't seem very willing to do that. Iran. Well, Iran speaks for itself. Kuwait. Kuwait is a quiet little backstabbing country that hosted some Iranian military vessels back probably around November, December last year. And they go where the wind blows, you know. They just want to be debaucherous dictators and keep getting wealthy and all that. Syria. Well, the American bases are being attacked in Syria. Turkey. Well, Turkey is a real wild card, aren't they? Turkey can very likely close the Bosphorus Straits, which would be a very bad blow to NATO because they can't go from the Mediterranean to the Black Sea. But if Turkey sided with Russia, Russia could go from the Mediterranean to the Black Sea, but not America or NATO. Turkey's relationship with America is, rather strained. Turkey threatens to have Israel wiped off the map. Turkey is basically a wild card. They're invading Iraq now to kill the Kurds in Iraq. They're going into Iraq. They've gone in Syria. They were a wild card. You don't know what they're going to do. So if America was going to clean house in the Middle East, they would go after who? They would clean out Iraq and Syria so they don't keep getting attacked there. And they would have to cut the head off the snake, which is Iran. And they would probably look to Israel to knock out the satellites that could mostly just be a threat to Israel, which are Lebanon and Gaza. Now, they would have to take care of the Houthis in Yemen as well, somehow. So Biden might very well become like the old Babylon, since he's the daughter of Babylon, and attacks Syria, which is today would be represented by Iran, on her satellites, and clean house. Iran may very likely push Biden into a corner where he has to do this for his political popularity and win the election. There's a number of things Iran could do to affect that. Shut the Persian Gulf, attack Kuwait and the UAE, I mean, a million things. Biden, not being very smart, has a lot of problems. What if he embeds himself deeply in the Middle East with the military, and then China gets enough guts to attack Taiwan, and then North Korea attacks South Korea, and Japan gets sucked in, and Taiwan sucked in, and the Philippines will get sucked in, and then what's Biden going to do? He can't come help them. He's going to have to turn his back on Taiwan, which the American public may not care about. They don't care. That may not hurt him. Japan will have a lot of problems. They'll get hit from South Korea and from China. The Philippines will just be overrun by China. What's Australia going to do? Send 1 or 2 warships over there? They'll go down to Davy Jones's locker right away. Australia can't do anything. China may eventually decide they want to take Australia over because they need food. And they got plenty of labor they can transport to Australia. So they might try to knock off Australia. But if they attack Taiwan, probably within 72 hours maximum, they'll have troops on the ground in Taiwan. Tens of thousands. And that means America has to bring a massive amount of military over to Taiwan, which will take 2 or 3 weeks, if not a month. And by then, China will probably have 150, 250,000 troops in Taiwan, entrenched. Speaking of weirdness, they got that border crisis between India and China. And India just moved 10,000 soldiers up to that line. 10,000 soldiers is a lot of soldiers because it's 14,000 feet high in the Himalayas. Not every soldier could just go and walk around at 14,000 feet. A lot of people get very weird at 7,000 feet. 14,000 feet, most everybody's going to be headachy, faint-headed, you're going to be in bad shape. You got to be conditioned and used to it. You can't just go do it. That's a lot of troops for that. So, is America ever referred to like the old Babylon in the prophecies against the daughter of Babylon? I'll read it to you. Jeremiah 50, verse 17. Israel is a scattered sheep. Now, what does that mean? It means that we're spread out all over the world. The lions have driven him away first. The king of Assyria hath devoured him. Okay. That happened. And last, this Nebuchadnezzar. Now let's check the word for this. Zay, it means this in Hebrew. Nebuchadnezzar was the ruler of Babylon, but this Nebuchadnezzar is referencing the ruler of the United States, which is right now Biden. This Nebuchadnezzar, king of Babylon, hath broken his bones. Now, this is about the daughter of Babylon. This is not about old Babylon. We read, verse 18, therefore thus saith Jehovah of armies, Elohim, God of Israel, behold, I will punish the king of Babylon and his land as I have punished the king of Assyria. So we're talking about two places being punished. Assyria, think Iran, and Babylon, think America. So how do you fulfill that? We have America and Iran in a war. How else? And it'll be one of those wars that nobody comes out in one piece. Can America still be destroyed without Iran? Sure. You've got millions and millions and millions of sleeper agents that will be armed and equipped in America to take out the military. China, Russia, North Korea come over with a bunch of Muslim terrorists from Iraq, from Syria, from Lebanon, if there's any left, from Hamas, if there's any left, from the Houthis and other countries. They don't need Iran. And I will bring Israel again to his habitation, and he shall feed on Carmel and Bashan, and his soul shall be satisfied upon Mount Ephraim and Gilead. In those days, the time this happens, and in that time, saith Jehovah, the lawlessness of Israel shall be sought for, and there shall be none. And the sins of Judah, and they shall not be found. For I will pardon them whom I reserve. The word for reserve means remaining or remnant. Remember the 2/3 getting cut off? That's who remains, the 1/3. So much stuff is going to happen in the next few months of this year of recompenses, and then in the year of redemption, which started about February 11th when we went into this year, the Jubilee year, which I believe it is. It could be unbelievable. But it's going to throw the nations into what's called derision or confusion. So much happening at the same time. Look at Biden. Russia keeps moving equipment around to attack NATO countries. He keeps fighting in Ukraine. Iran and their satellites keep provoking America and Israel. China keeps provoking with South Korea, with North Korea, South Korea, Japan, Taiwan, Philippines. Man, Biden's afraid he has nowhere to move. What does he do? He doesn't know what to do next. Should I go help NATO in Europe? Well, then China moves on Taiwan. Or Iran tries to conquer the Middle East. If Iran conquers the Middle East, oil will be $200-300 a barrel. And they'll be laughing. Russia will be laughing. China won't be laughing, but Russia and Iran will give China the oil for $40-50. They'll give it to him cheap, and that'll make China more competitive in world markets. You know, and America will be busted out. NATO's based on America. Without America, NATO's not much of anything. So, if America gets destroyed, which it will, how the heck is NATO going to hold up against Russia? They're not. That's the 2/3 he's talking about. Go up against the land of Merathaim, that's America, daughter of Babylon, even against it and against the inhabitants of Pekod. Same thing, waste and utterly destroy after them, saith Jehovah, and do according to all that I have commanded thee. He's telling these countries that are going to attack America what to do. A sound of battle is in the land and of great destruction. How is the hammer of the whole earth cut asunder? And broken how is Babylon become a desolation? Who can be the hammer of the whole earth if it's not America? Nobody. I have laid a snare for thee, and thou art also taken, O Babel, and thou wast not aware. Thou art found and also caught, because thou hast striven against Jehovah. Jehovah hath opened his armory and brought forth the weapons of his indignation, of his anger. For this is the work of Adonai Jehovah of hosts in the land of the Chaldeans, America. Come against her from the utmost border, open her storehouses. Now, the storehouse word is Strong's number 3965. Mabus or mavus. It can be just, it could be a granary or a storehouse. This could be weapons storehouses they're going after. And destroy her utterly, let nothing of her be left. Slay all her bullocks, let them go down to the slaughter. Those are probably the police agencies, federal, local, state. For their day is come, the time of their visitation. The voice of them that flow and escape out of the land of Babel to declare in Zion. So they escape from Babylon, America, and they come to Zion, to Israel. And they declare the vengeance of Jehovah Elohim, the vengeance of his temple. So, you know, you're talking vengeance, and you need to look at a couple of things. Ezekiel 34, I think verse 8. As I live, saith Adonai Jehovah, surely because my flock became a prey, and my flock became meat to every beast of the field, because there was no shepherd, neither did my shepherds search for my flock, but the shepherds fed themselves and fed not my flock. Now he's talking about the government of Israel here, and they're going to get cut off. That wasn't what I was looking for, though. Let me go in my notes and I'll find it. At least I hope I'll find it. I got a lot of notes, but I should be able to pick this up. I know I got it. Let's get it. Just bear with me, guys. I got the wrong. It's Isaiah 34:8. All right, we're cooking now. Isaiah 34:8. Not Ezekiel. Okay, Isaiah 34:8. For it is the day of the Lord's vengeance. This is the day of vengeance we were just reading about, right? And the year of recompenses for the controversy of Zion. So this tells us that the day of vengeance is associated with the year of recompenses, which we're in, which roughly began August 1st, give or take 2 or 3 days, one way or the other. Will end August 1st, 2024, roughly, give or take 3 or 4 days. And this is about the controversy of Zion, because they don't want to let Israel be Israel and have the land that God made a covenant to give us and return here and live here in peace. They want to mess this up. So that's why God is taking vengeance against them. But now let's develop this a little deeper and go to Isaiah 63. I will mention the loving, verse 1. I was in the wrong verse. Isaiah 63:1. Who is this that cometh from Edom with dyed garments with bows from Bozrah? This that is glorious in his apparel, traveling in the greatness of his strength. I that speak in righteousness, mighty to save. Therefore art thou red in thine apparel, and thy garments take that, like him that treadeth in the wine fat. That's the wine harvest, the grape harvest, which is usually like August to around August, I guess. I have trodden the winepress alone, and of the people there was none with me. For I tread them in my anger and trample them in my fury, and their blood shall be sprinkled upon my garments, and I will stain all my raiments. For the day of vengeance is in my heart, and the year of my redeemed is come. So now we see the day of vengeance also tied to the year of redeemed. How does this work? Boy, it stumped me for years. The Lord had to show me I wasn't getting it on my own. He told me year of recompenses began, I don't remember the exact day. He told me it was about August 1st. So it would go to about July 31st, 2024. But we're in a Jubilee year now, which the new year began on the Hebrew calendar February 11th. And that's, by my reckoning, a Jubilee year based on all the rain and what I'm looking at. And that's also the year of redemption. Redemption and Jubilee year are the same, very similar because every man gets in his inheritance back, which is the land of Israel. Now, the government of Israel keeps the land from us. They own they own 94% of the land in Israel. So when you buy the land, you don't own it. You get a 50-year land lease from them, which is a sick parody of the Jubilee year. And then you have the right to attempt to renew it for another 50 years. But the government has the right to impose different conditions on you that could cost a lot of money. So you don't even own your own land in Israel. 6% of the real estate here you do own. Okay. For the day of vengeance is in my heart, and the year of my redeemed is come. So if the redemption year began, does it have to begin at the same time the Jubilee year starts? No. It could, but it doesn't have to, but it probably does, but it doesn't have to. So you have an overlap between the year of recompenses and the year of redemption. So let's call this line recompenses and this line redemption. And you got an overlap. So there's going to be a time when we have redemption and recompenses, and that's probably when the two witnesses are going to really let them have it. In Zechariah 12. Burn up the enemies on the right hand and the left. So that's going to be a recompense on the ones that got burned up and killed, and a redemption for Israel, because then they're going to get more land back. Okay, see how it works. Now, we go to Isaiah 61, and we learn more. The Spirit of Adonai Jehovah is upon me, because Jehovah hath anointed me to preach glad tidings unto the meek. He hath sent me to bind up the brokenhearted, to proclaim liberty to the captives, and the opening of the prison to them that are bound. Well, that's when he went and preached to the dead. Okay? Now, he didn't do all these things. He was preaching the good tidings, telling them what's going to happen, telling the dead what was going to happen. He didn't liberate them yet. To proclaim the acceptable year of Jehovah and the day of vengeance of our God, to comfort all that mourn. The acceptable year. Well, God accepts you when you're in Israel. It's said in a couple of places in the Bible, that's where he accepts you. Now, when you read into that, you get the second Exodus is in year of redemption, and come back to Israel where we're accepted. Okay? Acceptable year would also be a Jubilee year, but we show mercy to our fellow countrymen, and they get their inheritance back, or we get our inheritance back. So it all points to acceptable year. Doesn't point to recompenses, it points to redemption. But then it says the day of vengeance, and the day of vengeance of our God, to comfort all that mourn, to appoint unto them that mourn in Zion, to give unto them beauty for ashes, the oil of joy for mourning, the garment of praise for the spirit of heaviness, that they might be called trees of righteousness, the planting of Jehovah, that he might be glorified. And they shall build the old wastes, that shall raise up the former desolations, they shall repair the waste cities, the desolations of many generations. Well, that sounds like second Exodus to me, and we're getting land back too. And strangers shall stand and feed your flocks, and the sons of the alien shall be your plowmen and your vine dressers, but you shall be named the Kohanim, the priests of Jehovah. Men shall call you the ministers of God. You shall eat the riches of the heathen, and in their glory shall you boast yourselves, in their riches. For your shame you shall have double, that's a double portion. For confusion they shall rejoice in their portion. Therefore, in their land they shall possess the double. Everlasting joy shall be unto them, which is a real indication of everlasting life. How else do you have everlasting joy? I mean, think about it. For I, Jehovah, love judgment. I hate robbery for burnt offering. And I will direct their work in truth, and I will make an everlasting covenant with them. Giving me another hint of everlasting life. And their seed shall be known among the heathen, and their offspring among the people. All that see them shall acknowledge them, that they are the seed which the Lord hath blessed. Those that see them shall acknowledge them. Well, how does that work? Just go back to the previous chapter, and it shows you how it works. Arise, shine, for your light is come, and the glory of the Lord is risen upon thee. Your light is come. What's the word for light? Or, it means light. Where did you see this one? Moses was with the glory of God of Israel in Mount Sinai, and he came down and he was glowing, shining so much they had to put a veil over his face. Oh, that's shining. Oh. See how rich this is? It's rich. Now let's get into the morning. Where do you see the morning? That gives us a clue. A little clue? No, a massive clue. In Zechariah 12, the Lord makes Jerusalem a burdensome stone, and everybody that picks themselves up of it will be cut in pieces. And they come in and they make a siege against Judah and Jerusalem, which means they surround it, not necessarily invade it, they surround it. And we see the two witnesses here in Zechariah 12:6. In that day, the day that this happens, I will make the governor, this could be the same day America gets it, I don't know. It could be, this could all be the day of vengeance. Don't ever underestimate Jehovah. Don't ever say that there's not enough time for Jehovah to work or anything like that. The vast majority of people that believe don't know how powerful Jehovah really is. And they don't really know how merciful and loving he really is, but they're soon going to find all this out. He has immense, unimaginable power and capabilities. And he has immense, unimaginable capability of loving you and just getting you to melt with love. And you'll find this out. In that day will I make the governors of Judah like an earth of fire among the wood. So what is he saying? The governors of Judah, that's the chiefs, those are the judges that he's going to run Israel with, which is in Isaiah 1, explains that. Like at the first, Moses and Aaron were the judges. So he's going to use the judges again. To be a judge, you got to be a prophet. The next two prophets are the two witnesses, which is Elijah and Apostle John. So what he's saying here in better English, in that day, will I make the judges of Judah. That's the land we have now is Judah. Judah, and the people that are here are Judah. So one way or the other, it's us. It's not the future. The judges of Judah like an earth of fire among the wood. Who do you know has fire coming out of their mouth? And then he says it a second time, because there's two witnesses. And like a torch of fire in a sheaf, and they shall devour all the people round about on the right hand and on the left. And Jerusalem shall remain still in her own place, even in Jerusalem. That's what it really says in the Hebrew. Jehovah also shall say to the tents of Judah first, that the glory of the house of David and the glory of the inhabitants of Jerusalem do not magnify themselves against Judah. In that day shall Jehovah defend the inhabitants of Jerusalem, and he that is feeble among them at that day shall be as David. So the feeble, old, weak people that can't walk right are going to be like David, who killed Goliath and a lion and a bear. And then what does he go on to say? And the house of David shall be as God, as the angel of the Lord before them. That's the glory of God of Israel that was with Moses and Aaron in the wilderness, and he killed something like 150,000 people in one day. So what's behind all this? Why are they this way? Wait. And it shall come to pass in that day that I will seek to destroy all the heathen that come against Jerusalem. God destroys them. But how? He has the two witnesses burn them up. Everybody knows it came from God. You can't go to Walmart and buy a kit that makes you have fire or lightning come out of your mouth, you know. And I will pour upon the house of David and upon the inhabitants of Jerusalem the spirit of grace and of supplications. So now God pours his spirit out on them, so they're believers. He doesn't, how can you not be a believer and his spirit is poured out on you, right? Especially the spirit of grace, where he's giving grace to you on supplications, which is like prayer. And they shall look upon me whom they have pierced, and they shall mourn. Remember the mourning? They shall mourn for him as one mourneth for his only son, and they shall be in bitterness for him as one that is in bitterness for his firstborn. In that day shall there be a great mourning in Jerusalem, as the mourning of Hadramon in the valley of Megiddo, and the land shall mourn, every family apart. The whole land of Israel is mourning. That did not happen when Yeshua got hung on the cross, as they say. It wasn't a cross. When you get hung on the tree, the stake of the pole, the stauros in Greek. Who was mourning for him? Nobody. So this happens in the future. He pours his spirit out on them, and then they're believers, and then they see him. Now, how do we explain the arise, shine? When they see you, they'll be afraid of you. How do we explain that? It's easy. Most people don't really want to believe their Bible, so it's hard for them because they struggle with actually believing it if it goes against the church teaching. But I'll read it to you word for word. And this is the will of him that sent me, that everyone which seeth the Son and believeth on him may have everlasting life. So the Spirit is poured out on them. Now they're believers. They looked upon the one whom they had pierced, Yeshua. They mourned for him. They got everlasting life. So they're shining like Moses did when he was with the glory of God of Israel, something like that. And then people are afraid of him. It's right there in front of you. Either you're going to believe it or you're not. But I'm not telling you stuff and saying I have no scripture. I'm telling you this is what the scriptures say. So it's up to you whether or not you want to believe it. I'm looking at the chat real quick to get rid of some of the junk. look, Moses and Elijah, it says in the Bible it's elected unto man to die only once. One of the two witnesses, they both die. Moses already died. He can't die again. It would break scripture. Before you go posting doctrine, why don't you learn your Bible? You obviously made a big mistake by saying it was Moses. Okay. So I took you on a pretty big journey today through Bible. I hope some of you got it. Let me jump into my notes and see what I forgot. Jeremiah 46, 27 and 28. But fear not thou, O my servant Yaakov, and be not dismayed, O Israel, for behold, I will save thee from afar off, and thy seed from the land of their captivity, and Yaakov shall return and be in rest, and at ease, and none shall make him afraid. Arise, shine, your light is come. Of course they're not going to make him, Fear thou not, O Yaakov, my servant, saith Jehovah, for I am with thee, for I will make a full end of all the nations whither I have driven thee, but I will not make a full end of thee, but correct thee in measure, yet will I not leave thee wholly unpunished. So, all the nations that the Israelites were scattered into over the many centuries will be destroyed. And we read this again in Jeremiah 30, verse 11. And Jeremiah 30 is associated with the birth pangs. For I am with thee, saith Jehovah, to save thee. Though I make a full end of all nations whither I have scattered thee, yet will I not make a full end of thee, but I will correct thee in measure, and will not leave thee altogether unpunished. Now, just before this, we see in verse 7, alas, for that day is great, so that none is like it. It is even the time of Jacob's trouble, but he shall be saved out of it. For it shall come to pass in that day, saith Jehovah of armies, that I will break his yoke from off thy neck, and will burst thy bonds, and strangers shall no more serve themselves of him. But and this is what happens in Zechariah 12. They come surround the nation, lay siege to it, and they get burned up by the two witnesses on the right hand and the left. And then we apparently occupy the land. We'll get the land that our father said, which I think goes way up into Lebanon. We'll include Gaza, maybe the Sinai Peninsula. I'm not high on that. And a good piece of Syria and maybe even into Iraq, southwest Syria. And that's what I think we'll get for this go-round. So it'll be very interesting considering how far into the year of recompenses we are, and you could look and see how the Houthis and Hamas and Hezbollah are getting recompensed. Or payback. Recompense is payback. And at the same time, Israel is not getting the land. They're just suffering, trying to get a victory. Because the deliverance and the victory is going to come in a way that it has to be attributed to Jehovah, not to the Israeli military or their own devices. When you rely on your own devices, it doesn't work too good. Look at the preppers and stuff. The way America gets destroyed is by fire. The Lord says He will kindle a fire in and around the cities. He'll do it. He's going to do it. By fire. So they're going to shoot the fire. You know? So I think we need to look at Biden as if Biden is more confused than diabolical. Diabolical he is, but he's confused. He doesn't know what to do. He's afraid of Russia attacking Europe and NATO. He's afraid of Iran taking over the Middle East. He's afraid of China taking out Taiwan and Japan, and North Korea taking out South Korea. And the Philippines could be taken out as well. And Biden doesn't have enough military to send them to all these places. So where does he put him? So he's afraid right now. He doesn't know what to do, so he's not putting them too much anywhere. If he puts too many in the Middle East at the wrong time, Taiwan gets hit. NATO gets hit by Russia. He has to watch. He doesn't know what to do. They're confused. They don't know. And that's what you read about with them in Isaiah 47, that they get confused and they don't know what to do. We see this in, I'll get the verses for you in a second. Isaiah 47 starts out stating, "Come down and sit in the dust, O virgin daughter of Babylon." Well, that's telling us it's America, Jeremiah 50:51. "Sit on the ground, there is no throne, O daughter of the Chaldeans, for thou shalt no more be called tender and delicate." Let me skip a few verses. As for our Redeemer, hint, year of redemption, Jehovah of armies is his name, the Holy One of Israel. Sit thou silent and get thee into darkness, O daughter of the Chaldeans. Darkness like electrical grid or something. Failure. For thou shalt no more be called the Lady of Kingdoms. I was wroth with my people, I have polluted mine inheritance, and given them into thine hand, and thou didst show them no mercy upon the ancients. Upon the ancients hast thou verily heavily laid thy yoke. Thou saidst, and thou says, I shall be a lady forever. So thou didst not lay these things to thy heart, neither didst remember the latter end of it. Therefore, hear now this, thou that art given to pleasures, America, that dwellest carelessly, America, that not so much today, but most of the time, that saith in thy heart, I am, and none else beside me. I shall not sit as a widow, neither shall I know the loss of children. But these two things shall come to thee in a moment, in one day, the loss of children and widowhood. They shall come upon thee in their perfection, for the multitude of thy sorceries, and for the great abundance of thine enchantments. For thou hast trusted in thy wickedness, let's see. I want to find the. Here we go. Therefore shall evil come upon thee, and thou shalt not know from whence it rises. And mischief, that's like evil, shall fall upon thee, thou shalt not be able to put it off. And desolation shall come upon thee suddenly, which thou shalt not know. That's your sleeper agents. And the mischief and the evil coming upon him is the Middle East, Iran, and the satellites Iran has, or the puppets, and Russia and Ukraine and NATO and China and Taiwan and North and South Korea. All this hitting them, plus the sleeper agents, there it is. Stand now with thine enchantments and with the multitude of thy sorceries wherein thou hast labored, even from thy youth. Ben Franklin, George Washington Masons. You know, Ben Franklin was also an avid nudist. Did you know that? If so be thou shalt be able to profit, if so be thou mayest prevail. Thou art wearied in the multitude of the councils. That's them trying to find out what to do by the occult, by astrologers, by stargazers, by the monthly procrastinators. Stand up and save thee from these things that shall come upon thee. It won't happen. Behold, they shall be stubble in the fire. It's going to be, the end is the Lord shall kindle a fire in and around the cities. They shall be, what happened in Texas a few days ago. The fire shall burn them. They shall not deliver themselves from the power of the flame. There shall not be a coal to warm at, nor fire to sit before. So in other words, they're going to get burned up, but they're not going to be able to make fires to stay warm. This is pretty much something like what happened in Egypt, where the Israelites in Goshen had been able to make light in their house, like a torch or a lamp could burn. But outside it was pitch dark. You couldn't see your hand in front of your face, probably. And the Egyptians had the same problem of not being able to see their hands in front of their face in their houses. They couldn't light a lamp, they couldn't light the coal or anything like that. So it's probably something like that. Thus shall they be unto thee, whom thou hast labored, even thy merchants from thy youth. They shall wander every one to his quarter, none shall save thee. So this is the future of what's going to happen in the fairly immediate future. So let me take a look here, see if I got any No, I'm good. Okay, so I hope you got something out of this today. I have a feeling the Lord will be developing this more with me, and we're getting an idea of what we're going to see. And I think we're going to see Iran and America fight, and the Iranian satellites too. So, and we're going to see America do evil to Israel also. It says that in the scriptures. Where? All right, I'll show you. I will show you. So let me fish it out. It'll be a moment. Not long. Jeremiah 51:24. Jeremiah 51, verse 24. And I will render unto Babel and to all the inhabitants of Chaldea all their evil that they have done in Zion in your sight, saith the Lord. Now, they're already talking about building a pier for Gaza, and then how's that going to go? What's that going to turn into? A pier that stays there and we're out of Gaza and they bring weapons in there? I have no idea, but it doesn't sound comforting, and it's not going to accomplish anything because they got to take the humanitarian aid from the pier by truck into the land. So what changed? Nothing. They attacked the trucks. Jeremiah, well, I don't want to go through that one. Okay. So there you have it. Expect America to do evil to Israel. And Biden is really fed up with Netanyahu now. So I really hope you're getting something out of this. I really do. And I'll probably be expanding on this again as the Lord leads, I have to say. So I'm Moshe. Please pray for me and my wife for peace, safety, protection, joy. Pray for our healing. Pray for our animals and pets that are all rescues to be happy, healthy, and whole. And pray for our finances. And thank you for those that give offerings. Offering information is in the chat, as well as the description box. And on my channel homepage, you could see a section up at the top there. It says offerings. You can click on that. And keep praying. Keep worshiping the Lord. Don't stop reading your Bible. Don't stop praying. Those are bad things to get into. Okay? Don't do that. And have no fear. And things are going to start getting better, very much so, very soon. Just be patient. Be patient. And I send my Shabbat Shalom to all those who love Yeshua HaMashiach. And I am out.